I found out my husband was having an affair with my son's 18-year-old girlfriend. What I uncovered afterward shattered me. It was supposed to be the perfect family life, a long marriage, 2 beautiful children, and the comforting familiarity of shared memories. But everything changed in an instant when I accidentally stumbled upon a message on my husband's phone that shattered my world. I had always believed that we were a solid family, bound by love and years of shared history. But that night, as I glanced at the screen, my heart sank. It wasn't just a message. It was a betrayal so deep it felt like a punch to the gut. My husband, the man I had spent nearly 2 decades with, was texting my son's 18-year-old girlfriend, and the words they exchanged were more than just flirtation. They were cruel, mocking, and devastating. How could this happen? How had I missed the signs? And how would I ever look at my family the same way again? The more I thought about it, the more everything seemed to unravel. I had never expected this, a quiet, unsuspecting moment leading me to uncover the horrifying truth about my marriage. As I sat there, staring at the phone in my trembling hands, the words on the screen cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. What did I miss all these years? The man I thought I knew, my husband Paul, had been hiding a world of deceit behind closed doors. The cruelty of his words, shared with Amy, my son's girlfriend, seemed almost unreal. They laughed at my appearance, my age, even the way I spoke. Every message felt like a stab in the back. I had confided in Paul about my insecurities, trusting him with my fears, my vulnerabilities, and now he was using them against me, ridiculing me with someone I considered family. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about how little I meant to him, how disposable I had become. It was clear that their bond had gone far beyond friendship. It was an affair laced with mockery, with a casual cruelty that I couldn't stomach. It was supposed to be the perfect family life, a long marriage, 2 beautiful children, and the comforting familiarity of shared memories. But everything changed in an instant when I accidentally stumbled upon a message on my husband's phone that shattered my world. I had always believed that we were a solid family, bound by love and years of shared history. But that night, as I glanced at the screen, my heart sank. It wasn't just a message. It was a betrayal so deep it felt like a punch to the gut. My husband, the man I had spent nearly 2 decades with, was texting my son's 18-year-old girlfriend, and the words they exchanged were more than just flirtation. They were cruel, mocking, and devastating. How could this happen? How had I missed the signs? And how would I ever look at my family the same way again? The more I thought about it, the more everything seemed to unravel. I had never expected this, a quiet, unsuspecting moment leading me to uncover the horrifying truth about my marriage. As I sat there, staring at the phone in my trembling hands, the words on the screen cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. What did I miss all these years? The man I thought I knew, my husband Paul, had been hiding a world of deceit behind closed doors. The cruelty of his words, shared with Amy, my son's girlfriend, seemed almost unreal. They laughed at my appearance, my age, even the way I spoke. Every message felt like a stab in the back. I had confided in Paul about my insecurities, trusting him with my fears, my vulnerabilities. And now, he was using them against me, ridiculing me with someone I considered family. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about how little I meant to him, how disposable I had become. It was clear that their bond had gone far beyond friendship. It was an affair laced with mockery, with a casual cruelty that I couldn't stomach. In that moment, I felt small, invisible. The memories of our shared life, our family photos on the wall, felt like a cruel joke. How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? How many times had my pain been their amusement? And worse, how could I tell my son, Eric, the boy who adored Amy, the girl he had loved since high school? My heart shattered as I thought about him. The devastation of the truth would ruin him. I was no longer just facing a broken marriage. I was about to destroy my son's heart, and the weight of that realization paralyzed me. The anger, the sadness, and the dread of what was coming next consumed me. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for the truth. The more I tried to convince myself that I could handle the truth, the more overwhelming it became. I had to know, but did I really want to? The cold, stark reality of what Paul had done to me, to our family, was unbearable. I couldn't escape the images in my mind of him, sitting next to Amy, laughing at me, mocking everything I thought was sacred between us. It wasn't just the affair itself. No, it was the complete disregard for everything we had built. The years, the shared experiences, the trust that I thought we had. I felt betrayed on a level I never thought possible. Paul had used my most private insecurities as a weapon against me. The way he compared me to Amy, calling me old, boring, even making jokes about my appearance, it was as if he never even loved me. The man I married had turned into someone unrecognizable, someone cruel and heartless. And Amy, the girl I had considered almost like a daughter, she had joined in. She laughed along with him, feeding into the venom, making it worse. The feeling of being laughed at by them both, of being reduced to nothing but a punchline, was soul-crushing. But the worst part? I still hadn't told Eric. My son, who had loved Amy for so long, trusted her like family. How could I shatter his world like that? How could I possibly look him in the eyes and tell him that the woman he adored had betrayed not only him, but his own mother? The thought of causing him that kind of pain made me sick to my stomach. And yet, I knew it had to happen. The truth couldn't stay hidden forever. My mind raced with dread, but I had no choice. I had to protect my family, even if it meant tearing it apart. The days that followed felt like a blur of dread and disbelief. I knew that confronting Paul was inevitable, but the thought of actually facing him made my stomach churn. I had to know the full extent of his betrayal, the how, the when, the why. I couldn't stand the idea of living in this agony, not knowing where their affair had begun, or how long it had been going on. Every time I tried to gather the courage, I hesitated, paralyzed by the possibility of hearing something that would crush me further. One evening, when I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me, I decided it was time. I had collected the evidence, the texts, the photos, the things I never wanted to see. I needed to confront him, but a part of me was terrified. My heart raced as I opened the Zoom call to face him. The look on his face when he appeared on screen sent a chill down my spine. Paul was never the type to get rattled, yet tonight, his flushed face, disheveled hair, and wild eyes spoke volumes. His whole demeanor was off, like he was already on edge, afraid I had uncovered the truth. I tried to stay calm, but my hands shook as I said his name, trying to keep my voice steady. I knew this conversation could go one of two ways. Either we'd face the truth, or it would spiral into chaos. Before I could even finish speaking, Paul cut me off, his voice rising defensively. "You don't understand the context," he shouted, his eyes darting around frantically. He kept repeating that word like a mantra, but it didn't make sense. What context could possibly justify what he had done? His anger was raw, unpredictable. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. He slammed his fist on the desk, and the camera shook, as if he were about to lose control completely. "You're destroying everything!" he yelled, his voice becoming a growl. I felt a pang of fear. The man who had once been my partner, my safe place, was now a stranger, full of rage and defensiveness. In that moment, I realized that the emotional betrayal was nothing compared to the physical threat I now faced. He wasn't just defending his actions, he was unraveling before me, and the realization hit me hard. I needed to protect myself and my children. My hands were trembling as I ended the call, my heart pounding in my ears. I had no idea where this would go, but I knew I couldn't do it alone anymore. My next step was clear. I had to be strategic. I had to ensure my family's safety before this nightmare escalated any further. The call with Paul had shattered whatever semblance of stability I had left. His rage, his defensive posture, it was all a terrifying sign that this wasn't just about infidelity. I wasn't dealing with a man who had made a mistake. I was face to face with someone unraveling, someone capable of far worse than betrayal. That thought alone terrified me. I had always believed that Paul was a man of control, someone who kept his emotions in check. But now, seeing the wild panic in his eyes, I realized how little I truly knew him. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a storm that could destroy everything in its path. I had to protect myself and my children. The fear was overwhelming, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. I immediately reached out to my lawyer, explaining the urgency of the situation. I needed to ensure my safety and my children's, and I needed to do it quickly. The way Paul had reacted to the confrontation was more than just defensive. It was violent, and I couldn't ignore the possibility that he might escalate. Every moment felt like I was walking on a tightrope, balancing between fear and the desperate need to take control of the situation. I spent the next few days in a haze of fear and action. I started gathering evidence, piecing together the puzzle of Paul's betrayal, his secret messages, his hidden life. Every new discovery felt like another layer of my trust in him being ripped away. I had to face the truth, even if it broke me. And the hardest part? The impending conversation with my children. How could I possibly tell them what had happened? How would I even begin to explain the depths of their father's betrayal, especially to Eric, who had always adored Amy? The weight of it all became unbearable, but I knew that I had no choice. I couldn't allow Paul to control the narrative any longer. I had to make the first move, and that meant I had to be prepared for whatever came next. As I looked at my children, I promised myself that I would protect them, no matter the cost. This nightmare wasn't over, but I would fight for them, for us. As the days passed, I felt like I was losing myself in the chaos. Every new piece of evidence, every glimpse into the dark side of Paul's life, made me feel more detached from the reality I had once known. It was like waking up in someone else's life, one where the man I loved and trusted had become a stranger. And yet, amidst the storm of emotions and betrayal, there was one thought that kept me awake at night. How could I tell Eric? How could I break the truth to him without destroying him? Eric had always been close to Amy. She was his first love, his confidant, the girl he dreamed of building a future with. She had been part of our family for so long that I never imagined she could turn into a symbol of my deepest heartbreak. How could I shatter his world? The thought of watching my son's heart break under the weight of the truth felt like it might kill me. But I knew I couldn't hide the reality from him forever. I thought back to the days when we were a happy family, before everything spiraled out of control. The laughter we shared, the family dinners, the vacations, everything felt like a distant memory now. a cruel reminder of how easily trust could be destroyed. Paul, the man who had vowed to cherish me, had broken every promise. The pain wasn't just in the affair, but in the realization that the love I thought we shared had been a lie. But the hardest part was yet to come facing Eric. I had no idea how to even begin the conversation. How do you tell your child that the person they loved and trusted is capable of such betrayal? My heart ached for him, and the guilt of keeping this secret from him was suffocating, but I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The lies had already gone on for too long, and I couldn't let them destroy everything we had left. I made up my mind. I would tell him soon. I had to, for his sake. As much as I dreaded the pain it would cause, I knew it was the only way forward. I had to prepare him for the harsh truth, as devastating as it was. He deserved to know what had happened, no matter how much it would hurt. And once I told him, there would be no turning back. But for now, I had to hold on to whatever strength I had left, because the real battle was just beginning. The storm of emotions was only growing, and the truth, once spoken, could never be unsaid. The moment I decided to tell Eric, I felt like my entire world was about to implode. The weight of the truth hung heavy on my chest, and my hands trembled as I stood in front of him. He had been through so much already his high school senior year, the excitement of his first love with Amy, the girl he adored, and now I was about to rip that all apart. The thought of watching the pain flash across his face was almost unbearable. How could I destroy my son's world like this? I had spent days trying to figure out the right words, but no words seemed enough. How do you even begin to explain this kind of betrayal? How do you break your child's heart without losing a part of yourself in the process? The guilt consumed me. I had been keeping this secret for too long, and the fear of what would happen after was almost worse than the act itself. But I knew one thing. I couldn't carry this alone anymore. I couldn't shield him from the truth forever. As I sat down with Eric, I saw the hope in his eyes, the trust that he still had in me. It broke me. I wanted to tell him everything would be okay, but I knew that was a lie. His relationship with Amy wasn't just about two people falling in love. It was a bond that was now tainted by the very person who should have protected him, his own father. "Eric," I whispered, my voice trembling, "there's something you need to know. Something about your father and Amy." His face changed instantly, the flicker of confusion giving way to concern. But I couldn't stop now. The truth had to come out. The silence that followed felt like 1,000 years. I watched as his face slowly shifted from confusion to disbelief, and then the hurt set in. I saw the cracks begin to form in the image of Amy he had built, and my heart shattered. But I couldn't take it back. I couldn't undo the damage that had been done. All I could do was hold him as the weight of his father's betrayal crushed him, just as it had crushed me. And in that moment, I realized that our lives, as we knew them, would never be the same. The aftermath of telling Eric was nothing short of devastating. His face, pale and stricken with disbelief, haunted me as I watched him process the unthinkable. The shock was evident in his eyes, a mix of confusion and betrayal that I couldn't ease. I had torn apart the foundation of everything he had believed about love, trust, and family. Amy, the girl who had been his first love, the one he had cherished and trusted like a sister, was now a symbol of his deepest heartbreak. How had this happened? How could his father, the man he looked up to, do this to him? I had always feared this moment, but the reality was far worse than I could have imagined. Eric's silence was deafening, and I could feel the weight of his pain in the space between us. He didn't say anything for what felt like hours, but the look in his eyes spoke volumes. It wasn't just about Amy anymore. It was about the world I had built for him, one that was now crumbling under the weight of his father's lies. How do I fix this? How do I rebuild the trust that has been shattered beyond recognition? Eric finally spoke, his voice low, barely a whisper. How could he? How could she? The words stung, but they were the truth. How could they both betray him, betray us, in such a cruel and callous way? I felt the pain twist in my gut, knowing I couldn't undo the damage. That the boy I had raised and loved was now facing the harshest reality of his life. I wanted to protect him, to shield him from this agony, but I knew I couldn't. The truth was out, and as much as I wished I could erase it, I couldn't. We were standing at the beginning of a new nightmare, one where healing would be slow and painful, but there was no turning back now. The days that followed Eric's revelation were the hardest of my life. I watched him wrestle with the truth, his anger and confusion growing with each passing moment. His silence spoke louder than any words could, a silence that was crushing, suffocating. My heart broke every time I saw him retreat into himself, his mind spinning with the enormity of what I had told him. He couldn't look at Amy the same way anymore, and worse, he couldn't look at his father without disgust. I knew that the relationship they had shared would never be the same. It was irreparably damaged, and the guilt of having to be the bearer of that truth weighed on me like 1,000 pounds. I couldn't stand to see him suffer like this, but I also knew that he needed time. Time to process, time to grieve, and time to understand that his world was not the one he had always believed in. I wanted to reach out to him, to comfort him, but the walls he had built between us were too thick, too painful to penetrate. Every word I spoke seemed to push him further away. My son, who had always been so open, so full of life, was now a shell of himself, shattered by the very people he loved and trusted. And then there was Paul, the man who should have been our protector, the man who should have kept our family safe. I couldn't even bring myself to speak to him. Every time I thought of him, I felt a surge of anger so intense it took my breath away. His actions had not only destroyed my marriage, but had also torn apart the trust between father and son. The realization that he had betrayed not only me, but our child, was a blow I couldn't recover from. The worst part was that I had no idea how to move forward. How do I pick up the pieces? How do I help Eric heal when my own heart was shattered into 1,000,000 pieces? Every decision felt like a wrong one. Every moment of silence felt like a betrayal of its own. But I had to be strong. I had to be the rock my children needed, even if it meant breaking into 1,000,000 pieces myself. In the days that followed, I felt like I was living in a nightmare that refused to end. I had no idea how to confront Paul, how to speak to him after everything he had done. Every time I thought about him, the rage built up inside me. It wasn't just the affair, it was the manipulation, the lies, the way he had turned our family into a broken reflection of what it once was. I couldn't even look at him without feeling disgusted, betrayed on a level that went deeper than words. Knew I had to face him. I had to take control, not just for myself, but for Eric and Mary, who were watching everything unfold. I gathered my strength and called Paul. My hands shook as I dialed his number. He answered after what felt like an eternity, and the sound of his voice made my stomach churn. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the raw emotion rising inside me. "We need to talk," I said. my words barely a whisper, as if speaking them aloud would make the reality of the situation even more real. He sounded defensive, almost angry, but I didn't care. I was done with the fear, the uncertainty. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to let him talk his way out of this. "You've destroyed everything," I told him. His response was cold and distant, as if he didn't even understand the gravity of his actions. But I wasn't going to let him manipulate me any longer. The conversation ended quickly, his tone escalating, becoming more erratic. As I hung up, I realized how far gone he truly was, not just in the affair, but in the emotional destruction he had caused. The man I once knew, the man I married, was gone. I wasn't just fighting for my family anymore. I was fighting to reclaim my life, piece by piece. The road ahead would be long, but I was done being afraid. The confrontation with Paul had left me feeling drained, but it also ignited a new sense of determination. I was no longer just a wife betrayed. I was a mother, a protector, and I couldn't afford to be weak anymore. The conversation with him had shown me just how far he was willing to go to protect his own lies, and I couldn't let that continue. I needed to make sure that not only was I safe, but my children were too. My thoughts were consumed with fear of what Paul might do next, fear of his unpredictability. But more than anything, I feared the impact this would have on Eric and Mary, the innocent bystanders in this sickening betrayal. I wasted no time. I contacted my lawyer immediately, detailing everything that had happened, the affair, the volatile confrontation, and Paul's increasingly erratic behavior. I knew the legal battle ahead would be a brutal one, but it was a fight I had to win. I couldn't leave my children in a situation where their safety, emotional well-being, and sense of stability were at risk. A restraining order was the first step, and I was prepared to do whatever it took to keep them protected. As I sat with my lawyer, going over the next steps, I could feel the weight of the decisions pressing down on me, but I knew there was no turning back. The truth was out, and now I had to fight for everything: my children, my sanity, and my future. I couldn't let Paul's twisted version of reality tear us apart any further. The idea of telling Eric and Mary that they wouldn't be seeing their father for a while was gut-wrenching. My heart ached at the thought of how this would further shatter their world. But I knew I had to be strong for them. I would protect them from the storm that was coming, even if it meant facing a future of uncertainty and pain. The battle for my family's safety had just begun, and I would not back down. The decision to move forward with the divorce was both terrifying and liberating. As the legal papers were filed, a sense of finality settled over me. I wasn't just leaving Paul, I was reclaiming my life, my peace, and most importantly, my children's future. The restraining order was in place, but the fear of what Paul might do next still gnawed at me. His unpredictability and rage were becoming something I couldn't ignore any longer. Every moment of silence felt like a countdown to an explosion, and I couldn't let my guard down for a second. Telling Eric and Mary about their father's absence was an act of courage I didn't know I had. The heartbreak in their eyes when I explained the situation was more painful than any betrayal I'd ever felt. But I had no choice. They deserved to know the truth, and I owed it to them to protect them from further harm. The guilt of seeing their pain tore at me, but I had to stay strong. This was no longer just about me. It was about creating a safe space for them, a place where they could heal. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to fight, not just for my own freedom, but for the future of my children. The storm was far from over, but I was determined to weather it.